just quickly introduce where I come from, what I do. I work for Statista. Statista really in one sentence. I'm sure you've heard of Netflix. And now imagine a Netflix for statistics and market data. So one site aggregating statistics, market data studies, forecasts, infographics and so forth from all over the world. No matter what topic, anything from energy use to smartphone penetration to opinions of, we had one on opinions of Reddit owners, anything, no topic. And because we have so many data on that portal, statista.com, we thought at some point, why don't we actually build something creative out of all this huge access to stats and numbers? And that's where my little department comes into play, the visual content marketing department. To underpin that again with a couple of statistics, in 2013 already, 4.75 billion pieces of content were shared on Facebook daily, and that breaks it down into 3.2 million pieces per second. I think that number is just quite intense, and when we compare that with, for example, daily we spend nearly 600 minutes using TV, radio, computer and smartphones, and then look at our time that we actually spend for eating, hygiene or friends and family. It underpins once again where we arrived as a society in terms of media consumption. Now, the question of course is, what does this explosion of data mean for us as individuals and mean also for us as businesses? According to Canadian researchers, the human being today has an attention span of 8 seconds. And these 8 seconds actually went 4 seconds down when we compare it to the year 2000, where it was 12 seconds. And sadly we're beaten by a goldfish by a full second because they have an average attention span of 9 seconds. And I tried to read the 54-page report on the methodology, but you know. So, to move on, when we think about our own media behavior, we have a phone in our hand, we watch TV, we WhatsApp people at the same time, we order something online, we do that when we go to work in the morning, we do that just before going to bed, and sometimes we even do that when a big whale is nearly flipping over our sailing boat. So, we need to ask ourselves, I think, as companies, as a business, what do we or what do our communities award highest importance to when it comes to media consumption? Is it the filter? Is it the colors that stops you in your Facebook scroll? Is it sensational wording? Is it interesting statistics? Is it images in general? Engagement of friends? And let's have a quick experiment. How many seconds does it take you to read that? Maybe 4, 5 or so? And how many seconds does it take you to understand this? So there's actually quite a lot of studies out there that say that we process information visually 60,000 times faster than text. And of course then one way to underpin today in our speed and digital communication society tailored messages is that we need to ask ourselves again, how do we generate meaning from all the noise out there? And one way to do so is by connecting what Seth Godin explains as the power of storytelling with David McCandless. I'm sure you've heard of him, the author of Information is Beautiful, visualizing information. Because these two things are essentially the essentials of infographics. Looking at the popularity of infographics, there was practically no searches on Google on that topic in 2010, according to the Google Keyword Planner. But this is now at 275,000 per month. Infographics were the content marketing tool with the largest increase from 2014 to 2015, jumping from 51% to 62%. And around 65% of marketing executives already say that infographics are core to their brand communication strategy. And also from a consumer point of view, a lot of people, nearly 4 out of 5, praise the intentions that organizations have in order to connect with their communities through custom content. now we're making a transition to actually some cases and away from all these statistics. I've tried to categorize actually a way of showing interesting infographics and data visualizations, and this is probably also my first ever infographic, which absolutely sucks, but the message is I wanted to categorize it into cases that are easy to read and inspiring to read, easy to understand and to remember, and show you examples that have the potential to go viral or actually went viral. Now, to start with, I was traveling from Copenhagen to my old hometown Malmö a week ago, and I don't know if you heard that on the media. When you travel from Copenhagen to Malmö, there's still passport controls on the Bridge, which connects Copenhagen to Malmö because of the refugee streams. And this infographic, I was sitting on the train, picking up the Sydsvenskan, which is a Swedish newspaper, and I realized, wow, this infographic made it on the cover page. And then I looked into the number with my basic Swedish skills and realized 2.3 million travelers were controlled by the police officers on the bridge or on the train in August and September only. 69 of them were looking for asylum. And although I've been promoting that infographics have the power of storytelling, this is quite a cool example of how it can actually trigger the story behind the numbers. So you have these two numbers, quite contrasting, but it makes you realize what an investment that is of the government, and maybe even also how unnecessary. So just as a start, quite a nice example of how powerful contrasting such two numbers could be. Now I need to hope that the text side, I can rely on that. Hang on. To show you one example on the internet. We will just jump now from a very, very basic example to probably, in terms of tech, one of the most inspiring or most detailed example I've seen in terms of infographics. So this is a Wikipedia-like animated interactive infographic on the history of the world. So a very relevant topic for all of us, and something that can trigger our interest. And to show you how this works, I hope I can do this with one hand, you can scroll from the left to the right, and all these dots actually represent examples of important historic events. So I'm just going to click randomly in there, and I arrived at the Dada movement is founded. Okay, whatever that is. But the cool thing now is, in order to dive into that infographic, I can read the wiki page about this on the same layer and learn what the Dada movement is. Or I could also now, for the geeks, maybe click on show related events, and actually similar events to the Dada movement are being shown to me. So just an example on how crazy visualizing information can work, and how important or how effective it can be to actually reduce complexity into a user-friendly way. Okay, back to this one, and then no, that was wrong. You always might have associated, I don't know, maybe kayaking, skiing, or big fjords with Norway, but after looking at the most popular search terms in 2006, this infographic left me with a nice knowledge that Norway is for some reason very obsessed with Jessica Alba, and I still don't have a clue on why that is the case, but just a nice easy example on how attributing search terms to a geographical categorization can work. I do like Scandinavian design, and this guy just nails it, I think. That's the Danish designer Peter Orntoft, and he actually had an idea to visualize a Danish survey about different society-related topics into categories that exactly reflect these topics. So the chapter on refugees and immigrants, he used a visualization that actually reflects the topic one-to-one. Same with health. For this one, he went into a lab at a university, and they created a sort of pie chart that reflects the numbers in the exactly same way. The only mistake I spotted, to be honest, I still don't understand why this is 55% if the guy is fully covered, but it's alright, he still did a great job. Back to the internet. It's just going to happen 2 more times, so yep. Of course, you've heard about this question that should come up in a moment, and we need to start here. A very cool example on how a Q&A session can sort of work within an infographic or an interactive infographic. Of course, this is a question that we've all seen on the media, except for a president-elect in the US. And the cool thing here is it keeps me on clicking. Like, I don't really stop, because the first question is what's really warming the world, and then I see this is the observed temperature rise. Is the Earth in orbit? I will now get an answer. No, that doesn't is it the Earth orbit? Sorry for that. That doesn't contribute to the global warming. Then I click on. Is it the sun? So it keeps me engaged, and it keeps me on clicking, and just to jump a couple of steps in order to arrive at the answer. Which is then here. No, it really is greenhouse gases. You think now you found the answer, but one more, see for yourself, different criteria, like aerosols, ozone, land use, not alone, but the human factors do. Now I'm lacking an English verb. Do account for the rise of the temperature, and this is then in line with the temperature rise. So a nice Q&A session on a very important topic for the whole society. Good. Next example. This is an example that we have actually done for, I don't know if you heard of Tesa. It's an adhesive tape company. You might have seen these sticky tapes flying around in your office. And an idea we developed for them, for their content marketing ideas or activities, was simply to compare the number of drilling, the time for drilling compared to the time for sticking something. And the whole drilling process takes 4 minutes 38, whereas the whole sticking process takes 1 minute 42 seconds. So their number of the day is 2 minutes 56. Of course, they pushed it into their social media channels, into their press channels, and without really saying anything about their product, I think they made it in a nice and clever way, showing that sticking or gluing something will win over drilling for many tools. An easy one again, and a simple one to understand. Broad acceptance or interest in society. The world as 100 people. I like the pie chart idea, of course, corresponds to the world as being a globe. And I've learned, for example, that looking at this infographic, there's only 7 out of 100 people worldwide who have a college degree. The more I think about it, yes, it makes sense, but to see it actually visualized, it still kind of amazes me. There is another one, and I can't even read this, but it should say that 50% of the world, or 1,500 people, have less than $2 a day, and this was quite surprising. 50% live in rural areas and 50% in cities. I would have thought this is really a different distribution, but again, a nice and easy way, including colors and including a nice breakdown of relevant topics for the society as a whole. You can now already imagine how big this infographic is on the so-called Battle of the Bonds, and I've just picked out this example from somewhere in the middle of there, because what I will now always remember is that if you sleep with James Bond, there's a 1 in 3 chance you will be killed by the end of the movie. So again, using nice, interesting content and connecting the dots that make you laugh, that make you stop, and that make you stop within your Facebook scroll behavior, for example. Another one that I will remember is that Daniel Craig apparently is the only James Bond who drank more martinis than and women he kissed. And what I particularly also like about this visualization is, I think the English word is a hair cross, and that corresponds quite well to something that might show up in the movies, like when you point a gun at someone. Just consume that one for a moment without me talking too much about it. It's a visualization of the world's conflicts. So conflicts between countries and wars, etc. But you could, of course, also turn that into something nicer. A couple of months ago we had the International Friendship Day, so we thought at Statista, hey, why don't we do an infographic on city friendships worldwide? So this is a visualization of all cities in Germany who have city partnerships with cities on other continents. So this would represent Europe, this would represent Asia, and so forth. Any idea what that might be? How about now? Do you remember chemistry class in school? And the example here is, I like the idea how infographics, although I'm not claiming that is an infographic, we'll go one step further in a moment, can use the power of symbols and actually activate patterns within your brain. And we can make use of that in our communication and marketing strategy, because now it will probably make us laugh a little bit that someone had the idea to connect this known symbolism and pattern with an overview on a table of condiments that periodically go bad. So I would learn that tzatziki is bad in 2 days, whereas tartar sauce is with me for 6 weeks, and malt vinegar, honey, salt and sugar are really lifelong companions. So a cool idea on how you can use the power of symbols and to activate patterns and frames. In terms of topic and visualization, one of the nicest examples I found, please also note that there are no numbers involved, so it just works with visual relations. So you see the United States and China and India and Japan are the biggest producers of CO2 emissions worldwide, and the designer here has also put all the countries, I think that all the countries from one continent into one area of the foot. And yeah, I like the connection between global carbon footprint and the idea that was visualized. That is probably, has anyone heard of Kulula, South African airline? I flew with them actually once, and they're the most easygoing airline I've ever encountered. They're known for their very, very easygoing culture and so forth. And they didn't probably care to put an infographic out on social media or print or on their website, whatever. They thought, hey, let's just put it on our aircraft. And the way they communicate this is, for example, that the toilet for them is actually the Mile High Club initiation chamber. The jump seat here is the wannabe captain. They don't use aircraft registration codes, they use secret agent codes, and one of my favorite messages was, our door is always open except when we're at 42,000 feet. So again, cool example on how to connect an infographic with a very new media channel, and definitely an example that either went viral or still will go viral. Last one for me to jump on the internet. And I'm sure you've heard of Games of Thrones, and there's probably several people who watch it. So the Washington Post thought, in order to promote the 6th season of Games of Thrones, why don't we make an overview on all the people, is it people at Games of Thrones or monsters? Yeah, people, whatever. All the beings that died during Games of Thrones, and make an overview on where, how, why, and when they died. So you scroll down here, and now I'm just gonna click on this Games of Thrones hipster, and then I find out that he died in season 1 in episode 6 in Winterfell, which sounds like an Austrian ski resort, but apparently somewhere at Games of Thrones. Theon Greyjoy killed him with an arrow. Also falls in the method category of an arrow, and he did it because of an attacked Bran Stark, because he attacked Bran Stark. So, yeah, good job by the Washington Post, and that one probably got a lot of clicks as well. I just have to show you that one because I have some interesting KPIs for that one. 2 reasons. The heading says autonomous driving creates jobs. So it's kind of hard not to click it because it's definitely something that defines our future a little bit. Autonomous driving is in the media nearly on a weekly basis. And the other reason is when you look at the KPIs here, we've done this for the job search portal Indeed, and they said that without Statista infographics, they have an average of 1,654 newsroom alerts, but that's then quite a nice example on how using customized infographics in your corporate design and with a topic that attracts a lot of clicks can bring this number up, as well as the social shares. And also, I don't know how many of you still invest quite a bit in press work, but they claimed that since they use customized infographics, the press releases, the coverage of their press releases has increased by 35%. Last but not least, one of my Statista all-time favorites, this actually made our server crash. It was featured on Reddit as well, and apparently there's 22 countries only that have never been invaded by Britain. We've published that one in the Independent too. The question I still have here is, what happened on the way from France to Spain? Why was Andorra not conquered? Was it not cool enough or too small? But yeah, a pretty interesting map, and made quite a lot of people laugh so far that I met. Good, then to sum this up, what I said today, what I believe infographics have the power to actually make the term of big data forget a little bit and claim that we're able to put data and stories into big insights and simply reduce complexity. If you think about the history example in the beginning, that's the history of the world, but it's actually portrayable in one single website and on different layers. So infographics have the power to reduce complexity. I like this quote down there: without graphics, an idea might be lost in a sea of words, and without words, a graphic may be lost to ambiguity. So only the interplay between text and images will unfold the true power of the story. So it might not get you your desired result. If you just create an infographic with numbers on it, it might be a little bit too dry or boring. But if you actually take the reader by the hand, craft a story that gets you from point A to B, like in the James Bond example, it's kind of tricky to stop reading, or the global warming example I showed to you earlier. This will lead to desirable results. Number 3, that's actually quite a challenge, but it is doable. Making the magic of connecting the dots and making the invisible visible. Just show you an example. There's a correlation between number of people who drowned by falling into a pool and films that Nicolas Cage appeared in. So this is what I mean by that aspect. And if you use such messages and communications in your infographics, there is quite a high chance that it will be opened. One of the most powerful reasons, I think, and the simplest, is I think people like design, stories and numbers. To be honest with you, I haven't met a single person yet who told me, hey, infographic sucks, leave me alone. Like, so all the people I spoke with so far, not only on this exhibition, it actually left them with a smile. So that's probably my main message. And the last infographic I'm going to give you, if you feel like it, come over and speak to us. Thanks a lot. Cheers.